The historic campus of Whitmore University woke up to a rainy Monday morning. This morning would be different from all others, because today marked the beginning of an unexpected test for Barron Trump. As students walked with umbrellas on the wet sidewalks, they hurried toward the main building of the campus. Rain droplets danced on the wide tree leaves, while the wind lightly scattered them around. As autumn drew to a close, the old stone buildings surrounding the campus had transitioned from the green of the forest to shades of yellow and brown. The rustling of students' footsteps and the contact of their shoes with the wet ground seemed like a story that embraced every corner of the campus. At exactly 10 o'clock, they started filling the lecture hall for Professor Linda Hawthorne's Sociology and Public Perception class. Professor Hawthorne usually taught her classes calmly and attentively, but this morning the slight tension on her face was clear enough for the students to notice. The day's topic was the impact of public figures on social perception. The topic had gained significant attention in everyone's minds after Barron Trump's arrival on campus. As the class began, the professor wrote "Power and Perception" in large letters on the board. Then, she started a discussion about the public perception of former presidents and famous figures. One student took a deep breath and raised their voice. "What about Donald Trump? How does his return as president affect society?" This question was something Barron had secretly anticipated, but it still bothered him. The professor tried to remain neutral as she answered the question, but it was clear that there were mixed feelings among the students about the topic. Barron Trump typically didn't speak much and avoided drawing attention. After his father Donald Trump was re-elected as President of the United States, he noticed that the way people looked at him had changed at school. Some students preferred to keep their distance from him, while others began to adopt openly hostile attitudes. Barron, however, continued to see himself as an ordinary student, always calm and always with his own unique demeanor. However, what would happen at the beginning of this class was going to challenge his limits and completely change the situation he was in. The atmosphere in the classroom had turned into an ordinary educational environment as the professor began the lesson. However, Barron had started noticing the mocking looks of the student groups around him. Eventually, one student boldly spoke up, turning to Barron with a sarcastic expression. "What do you think, Barron? Does your father's return as president make you feel special?" There was a mocking tone in their voice. Some students chuckled lightly, while others eagerly awaited Barron's response. Barron took a deep breath, but didn't answer. This silence encouraged the other students even more. Another student, going further, raised their voice. "Yes, after all, you're his son. Will you defend your father's policies, or are you ashamed of him?" At that moment, Barron's heart began to race, but he didn't show any emotion on his face. He had learned how to cope with such situations, but this time, his mother, Melania Trump, was involved as well. One student asked, "What does Melania Trump's constant silence mean? Is she a powerful figure or just a perfect image?" This question had crossed Barron's limit. Every mention of his mother's name stirred up the complex emotions inside Barron. Comments about his mother felt like a personal attack. A sparkle appeared in his eyes, but he tried to gather his voice with patience and stood up. Barron slowly leaned back, scanning the classroom. Many students, sensing they would encounter an unexpected response, fell silent. Then he calmly stood up, drawing the attention of the entire class. As he began to speak, not a single sound was heard in the lecture hall filled with students. Everyone was focused on Barron, who was now addressing them. "It's ironic that you judge me here just because of my father, isn't it?" he began. His voice was neither angry nor upset. On the contrary, it was extremely calm. As he answered, he seriously scrutinized the students' gazes, carefully choosing his words. "Because you're doing exactly what you just criticized. Instead of seeing me as an individual, you're judging me based on just my last name. You haven't really gotten to know me. You haven't even asked me about my own identity." These words immediately silenced the mocking looks in the classroom. The atmosphere in the class became tense. Some students lowered their heads in embarrassment, while others stared at Barron in astonishment. Barron continued, "You're discussing prejudices in society and how powerful figures are perceived, but even while doing that, you're perpetuating the same cycle. Do you think a person is only as they appear in the media? Is a person only known by their past? Look at him, just like his father. He's getting defensive." A mocking voice was heard, but this time Barron didn't back down. "You say you stand for free thought and different perspectives here," Barron said, glaring at the mocking student. "But when someone says something different than what you expect, you immediately label them. Is this really progressive thinking?" A faint murmur rose in the class. Professor Hawthorne realized the value of this moment and quickly intervened. Turning back to the class, let's think about what Barron has said. Do we judge a person based on what we've heard, or do we make the effort to really get to know them? Some students began to deeply ponder Barron's words. His response was more powerful than most had expected. His eyes held meaning, and his voice carried not only his own emotions, but also a critique of societal perception. After that day, Barron's words were recorded by a student's phone and quickly went viral on social media. The video, shared under the hashtag Barron Trump's Stand at University, was watched by millions. Barron's words were described by many as mature and thought-provoking. Some social media users said the incident prompted a reevaluation of the culture of judgment in society. Comments saying we should judge a person by their identity, not just their name, rapidly increased. Even the students at the university started to look at Barron differently after the incident. He was no longer just the son of a famous figure. He was now seen as a young man with his own stance and thoughts. Social media quickly spread the effects of this conversation among university students, and Barron's name became known not only because of his father, but also because of himself. This event was not just a moment in a classroom, but also a reflection of a larger truth. It reminded everyone that it's easy to judge people by their past or their family, but the real challenge is trying to understand them as individuals. Barron Trump not only defended his own identity, but he also exposed how easily society tends to label and judge others. So what do you think? Do we really judge people by their identity or by their name? Share your thoughts in the comments. If you don't want to miss more inspiring stories like this, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. See you in the next video.